tuned into On Air with your host, Clavette. Okay, we are joined by Shallou. Joe, what's going on, my friend?
Not much, dude. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on and saying my name right. That was dope.
Yeah, how do people typically pronounce it?
I've gotten all kinds. I've gotten shallow, which is it hurts because you're like, yeah, my music's shallow. No, I mean the name is kind of inspired by like aquatic themes, and I think like the first music I was ever making was very, um, you know, still pretty chilled out, but like I guess more inspired by like the ocean waves, or I was trying to like emulate that feeling, I guess, with my music. So changing like the actual word shallow to a W was definitely like part of it. Also, it just having its own kind of thing to it. But yeah, people say shallow, and I guess in that way they're like kind of right, but not fully right. Shallou is good. I just get a lot of questions of people asking how to say it and why I'm named that. And I'm like, well, didn't think about it too much. Just kind of like went with it. And, I feel like in electronic, there's a lot of names, that don't really make sense. And you just come up with a kind of a weird contrived reason. You just roll.
Yeah. I think it is important because you want something that's unique. And I think there's nothing more unique than sort of like a made up word almost. You know what I mean? Like I went by my last name for a long time, which is Clavette. And that that was my manager at the time was like, your last name is unique. Why are you running away from that? And I'm like, okay, that's a good point. But
I think sound like a good, like, I don't know if you make electronic music, but it does sound like a kind of like 80s inspired, like Kavinsky or something like that in that world.
It's French. I mean, that's sort of it. I used to make like sort of club level or club ready French touch kind of stuff.
Oh, hell yeah.
We'll get into that later.
Okay, cool.
But you did touch, so you kind of opened with like a good segue, because I think one thing that I'm really interested in is sort of like, as artists, I can imagine you're writing records. There's a feeling that you're sort of maybe trying to put down on paper in a sense, right? And I'm curious if that's something that you are is that something you want to impart on your listener, or do you sort of feel like your work is more interpretive when it comes to the listener and you sort of write music for yourself in a way?
Yeah, I think at the beginning I was like focused on the aesthetic of my music and kind of like what it would look like, because I was kind of inspired by a lot of like the Odessa type artists, some of the like more down tempo artists in like 2016, like James Blake and Gold Panda and people like that had this like very like they kind of had their visuals figured out. And so I guess going back to that name thing, I was like, well, I wanted to kind of be like a visual project as well as a musical one. But I think as time has gone on, I realized that it's a lot easier for me to just write and kind of just like let it flow out of me and then figure out like where it's supposed to fit later instead of trying to fit it into like a particular niche. Like for example, like the chill thing with a lot of like my early music, I didn't set out to say, hey, I'm going to make this music that fits really well on like Spotify's chill playlist. I was just like kind of throwing ideas at the wall and just kind of trying to express things and create different sounds. And it was more of like a puzzle piece, a bunch of puzzle pieces that ended up fitting together by accident almost. And I feel like I have the most fun that way. Like I actually kind of struggle with writing to like a specific brief, which I know a lot of people in this industry make a ton of money, like writing music for, hey, I need a song for like this scene where the car is racing by and blah, blah, blah. I do okay with that, but I really thrive when I'm trying to just like make something wholly original and like that expresses myself and like is definitely more accidental and like exploratory, yeah, than here I gotta make a house track, here I gotta make a French touch track. And I mean, there's multiple ways of doing it, right? Like it all comes down to like what you're inspired by. And I think when you sit down to write music, you should really just be coming less from the brain and more from the heart and soul and kind of what you want to express. And I think like, yeah, searching for certain tones that you really like that maybe are aligned with like a Daft Punk song or something. It's your choice what you do with that, right? Like you could have a really super Daft Punk inspired guitar riff, but then you're producing drums in a whole different genre or a whole different concept and just trying to make things work together. But yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's a couple of interesting things there because I was reading that, you've this project is 10 years plus, right? And there's people that have been there with you from the beginning, and then there's people that are discovering you now. And I wonder how you balance those two different fans, like people that are looking for that sort of you and me sound
Exactly.
from the beginning, and how you balance sort of where your direction is leading you and where your inspiration is taking you. How do you, I mean, is there any thought of that when you're writing? It sounds like maybe not, but are you thinking about those early fans ever when you are writing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am always thinking of them. Luckily, I feel like my early fans uh, are happy for me to evolve. Like, I think a lot of them are hopefully the same as back in 2017 or 2018. Definitely gathered some new ones just from going a bit dancier. And I guess, like, at that time, BPMs weren't as fast. Like, I could never play You and Me 113 BPM in a DJ set. That wasn't just my fans, right? So like I think balancing like the DJ thing where I'm trying to bring people into the fold who don't know who I am with the people who came to the show to hear You and Me, it's like I feel like the answer is always edits. Um, Making things that fit a little bit more of a clubby environment because if I need to go clubbier for a show or for whatever, I can, but I always can revert back to like the live version of like, you came to see me and I'm singing and playing instruments and stuff. I can get away with having it a bit slower. But I guess in the studio, sometimes I'll say, hey, today I want to write like something that's dancier or something that maybe goes a little harder, as they would say. And I'll do that, and I'll usually end up with something that is like kind of unique where it's balancing both worlds. Like I feel like I can never go full like tech house or something. There's always something pulling me back to the earlier sound and kind of like what is the hybrid of what that looks like in 2026. Yeah, so I think again, I just try to let the process lead me. I just try to go day by day what I'm feeling. And I guess that kind of goes into like just whenever you're sitting down to produce, which I try to do every day, having an intention of just like making the best thing I can and something that feels like me and something that feels unique. Never being pulled towards, well, this guy just put out this track and it's doing really well. I need to like try to emulate that or whatever. So, and I think sometimes you get lucky and something that you make is super unique, but also really danceable and like works in a club, but then also works like at a live show and kind of has like all the bases covered. And so I always hope for that, but trying to seek that out, I don't know. It doesn't always work for me. But.
Is there a track that sort of surprised you in that way? You kind of just mentioned like sometimes you write something you don't really know how it's going to be received almost. Is there something that kind of ticked all those boxes? Is there a track of yours that just you wrote one way, it also works in a club and it's really remembered in that way?
Yeah, I think this song that I did called See You in 2023 works in every setting, and it has a lot of vocals in it, which like you would think maybe on in like a club or a dance show that's like too much, it's too songwritery. But yeah, I'm really happy with that one. I'm proud of it because it's like it has my vocals and my writing all over it, but like you can still dance to it, but you could also put it in a different kind of environment and it works. And so I've definitely chased that a little bit with like trying to do that again a couple times. But again, like every time I try to redo something I've done, it just is shitty. Like, I think I just have to
Yeah.
keep evolving or making something new that brings it in a different direction. But yeah, at first I was really nervous about that song because I'm like, is this too much of a departure from like literally like 95 BPM ambient, like slow, pretty, like, what you would say is like kind of background music-y. Not that I'm like trying to make background music. I, think a lot about this music, but sometimes it becomes background because it's so like chill, whatever. So I was nervous that the people who are like obsessed with that would be like, no, CU is like, he's trying to be something he's not, which I never was. It just was, again, an accident that I thought ended up working out pretty well. So,
Yeah. Well, talk to me about the early days again and maybe some of the influences then, and then maybe we can work to sort of what's influencing you now. I was reading that, was it your friend who's now your manager was really kind of pushing like pushing you to sort of take your music pretty seriously back in those days? Is that correct?
yeah. Yeah. I was always a hobbyist.
Okay.
Um, when I was in college, I wanted to work in music in some capacity. And at that time, it was like engineering. Like I wanted to be mixing records or producing for other artists. Like my big dream was to be like a Pharrell type of dude, or like someone who's like in the room, not necessarily like the main guy, who's like just helping other artists make their dream come true and kind of taking more of a background approach. And so I think I was just making like beats and mashups and music for fun in our shared dorm room. And, Carson is his name, is like, you know, very like ambitious person who's like knows a lot of people. And even at that time was just like so connected in a mysterious way. I'm like, how do you know all these people? Like, I don't know, which is great for a manager, right? So he had that kind of that je ne sais quoi that managers have where they're just like the guy. And he just kind of heard me making some music one day. And I mean, I was making it all the time. And we had a lot of shared artists that we liked. And he was like, yo, this is actually really good. Like, have you ever thought about trying to do music, as when we graduate? Like, do you want to be like an artist or like a DJ or touring, whatever? I was like, no, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's okay. Like, it could be cool. I don't know. And he's like, well, let me just try to get you some opportunities, send your music around to blogs at the time. That was the big thing, right? And so he would get me a little blog feature here and there. I'd be like, oh, that feels kind of cool. And then he'd get me like a remix opportunity for like a couple $100. I'm like, holy fuck, I've never made money off of music before. So I was like, my mind was starting to get blown by this. And I'm like, like maybe I should try, because I was kind of building some little momentum. And then when we got out of college, it just like really sped up. So I graduated in 2015. And in 2016, I started to like get these placements on Spotify and like as a completely independent artist, just like through connections and I guess blog posts and stuff like that. And just kind of like continue to ride that wave and not overthink it and kind of just like take opportunities as they came. And, my Carson would send me an opportunity. I'd say, yeah, no matter what it was, pretty much. Cause I was like, this is a great life. I'm loving this. Like, I'm just going to keep it rolling. And then, yeah, we just kept building it together. I guess in 2018, I started doing shows and they would sell out. I was doing festivals, I got Coachella, like all these festivals I was never like expecting or even really that interested in. Like, I didn't really know that much about Coachella when I got the offer, which sounds crazy,
Wow.
but I just like, I was an East Coast kid. I didn't really know what California was up to in that way. Or I wasn't like a festival guy. I was more like almost like a punk rock, like club guy, like something like that. And small independent electronic artists, like nobody, at these big DJs and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what we built together. And like, we still work together. We're still just us. We've had a couple like managers come in and help here and there, but yeah, same manager as when I started. And it's like, really fun and cool to talk about because it's your day one. It's like nobody knows me better than him or maybe my wife. You know, those are the two that I coincidentally met around the same time, and they're still my number one people. So like, it is really nice to work with someone who you like share the values of and have so much shared history with, and they like really know you. They almost know what you're gonna say before you're gonna say it in terms of like an opportunity or whatever it is. And that's something that I like always try to encourage my fellow artists or friends who are trying to get into music is find someone that you like want to be big with. Like if your career does blow up, like don't just have it be with like some random suit. Like have it be with your friends. Like have it be with someone who really cares about your project and cares about you, because your career goes like this. And if you have someone who's going to stick with you no matter what, that's the most satisfying way to do it, at least for me. So yeah. I mean, I don't know what the rest of your question was, but
No, that's great. And I think that the cool thing about that is like it sounds like Carson and you complement each other really well, right? Like sounds like a bit of a social butterfly, was out there, you know, kind of knew the right people to connect your music with at the time, but also had like an ear for it, right? Like he could hear
yeah.
the talent. I guess what the original part of that question was, but I'm glad you shared the story, is what were those like early influences? Like what were you drawing on when you were sort of, I don't even want to say developing the sound, because a hobbyist wouldn't even say you were like developing a sound. You were just writing music, right? So like
Yeah.
what was it that was drawing you to electronic music and sort of the sound you were creating at the time?
Yeah. So again, I was into a lot of those like more left field kind of like, I don't know if you remember the label Ghostly International, but
Yeah.
like those like beat maker type of guys. I was like, this is so sick. I want to be involved in that. And I went to school in New Orleans. There's a little bit of that kind of happening. But then our shared interest was like a little bit more of the main stage act of like someone like Dead Mouse, where like Dead Mouse kind of has the respect of, you know, synth nerds and kind of like big EDM festival people, like the people who go to Ultra every year. Like there's that crossover. I think that was one of our crossover artists. And then another one was Coldplay. And I remember we'd have this huge debate that would sometimes get really intense, where he'd be like, Coldplay's the best band on the planet. And I'd be like, they're a great band. They're so good. But Radiohead is the best band on the planet. Like that was I don't know if I believe that now. Maybe, yeah. But I would be like, Radiohead's the best. And he'd be like, Radiohead has nothing on Coldplay. I'd be like, dude, you can't say that. Like, that's insane. You can't say that. And like our tastes are a little bit different. And he is a Radiohead fan. Like he understands. But we used to fight about that kind of thing because he has a little bit more of like the pop sensibility than I do, which again goes to your thing of like, we do even each other out. Cause like every time I'd write a track that was more pop adjacent, he'd be like, dude, this is the one. Like, you know, we got to try to get this to radio and all that stuff. And like, he was right to some extent. Like one of my bigger songs, Lie, is like super poppy. It has like a classic kind of like female top line thing about heartbreak. And like, he was right. That song did really well. And so I don't know. Yeah. Just trusting someone else's input in that way that balances you out from being too like left field or too pop. But yeah, I just remember that debate being like insane. And if he sees this, he's probably going to be like, I never said that, you know, but I know the truth. I know my truth.
Putting up Viva La Vida against In Rainbows is kind of hilarious.
I mean, both great records. Don't get me wrong.
Great records in their own regard, right?
Yeah,
like,
Brian Eno, you know, worked on that. It's like, so, but yeah, that's just a funny little thing.
No, I love that. And I think that's the kind of like influences that I'm always drawn to when like talking to, because then you can kind of start to hear it. And you said something earlier too that I thought was really interesting, where you were like, I came from this like punk background. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of interesting because I do think around the time that you started putting out some of those early records, there was this like punk rebellion against some of the harsher, harder stuff. And it came out as more like, I don't know, maybe chill house. It was like, it was like the Robin Schultz and like you and a bunch of those artists that were sort of like, it was this pendulum swinging against like these really intense records of like the 2010s, you know, like
Yeah.
2014, 2015. Like the advent of bass house too. Like I think people wanted something that they could listen to like at the library or on a run, and or maybe not on a run, but you know, whatever it is in a different capacity. They want to just be, they don't want to have to feel like they're overstimulated in a way because of
Yeah.
how intense like the trend of dance music was kind of going at that time. And so in a way, like this chiller vibe was very punk, you know, especially in dance music. And I think that that's so interesting. And so now let's maybe fast forward to now. Are those the same influences you're sort of drawing on? Is there new stuff, or is it, you know, like where, how do you talk to me about maybe the evolution of your sound and like sort of
Mhm.
what you're thinking about when you're writing? I know it's just kind of flowing out, but there's got to be some sort of
Mhm.
thought that kind of goes into it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think now I'm more focused on kind of getting better at the things I'm good at and getting better at diversifying myself as an artist. And I don't know, I always tell people that it's like if they're like, "Oh, what's your favorite artist or what are you into right now?" It's like, "Well, I'll just pull up my Spotify likes and show you because it's I might like, you know, the vocal technique of this song or I might like, oh, this is a really cool production." And it's like I'm a fan of sounds and I'm a fan of like production and songwriting less than I'm like a fan of particular artists now. I know that sounds like kind of douchey, or maybe I've just seen like too much of the behind the scenes of how it all works to like really invest in someone's you know, how they portray themselves as an artist or whatever. But I'm really interested in what they're doing and kind of like their processes. And yeah, I think for that reason it's like very scattered. Again, like I'll hear drums that I've never heard, like a drop style I've never heard done before. And I'm like, oh shit, that's cool. Like, what if I combine that with this idea I have? And I think that's kind of how I'm consuming music. I mean, like, my wife will tell you, like, we'll be out somewhere and I'll like very faintly hear some music in like a hotel lobby and be like, oh, that's kind of interesting, like, style to it. Like, I'll Shazam it. And then later I'll like add it to a playlist and kind of examine it and be like, well, actually, maybe that was just like a weird brain thing where I was attracted to that vibe in that moment. And I'm like trying to like recapture that or figure that out or make sense of it. So I think I'm just trying to build my arsenal and, you know, make stuff that, again, like fits multiple environments, but I always want the human element to be there. I think that's a lot of the reason why I'm singing and kind of like a lot of my songs start by sitting down at the piano or a MIDI keyboard and like focusing on chords. And I think something that always came to me naturally is melody. Like I kind of grew up singing and playing instruments and stuff. So like I never had to like watch a tutorial about how to come up with a melody or like, and there are people who do that and like that's fine, but it's something that's always been natural to me. Whereas like to them, they might understand how a compressor works like immediately. Whereas for me, it took me fucking years to understand that. And like that actually shaped how I was producing, you know? It's like if I have a more limited understanding of a compressor, then I won't compress my music as much. And then it becomes softer or gentler. And a lot of like my production early on was like working around things I didn't know how to do. And that like created a style. And so now I'm almost like, well, let me go learn that thing and then I can apply it to my style and see where it's going to take me from there. So I don't know. I always want to be in a learning stage with music. Like I never feel like I know enough. Like, there's always some new plugin or some, you know, even instruments that I'm like, man, if I just like sat down with my guitar every day for 3 hours in the same way that I sit down with the synth or something else, it's like I could get some really interesting guitar sounds. And so you go on these different rabbit holes of like such a great time to create music. There's
Hmm.
so many tools. You can make anything sound like anything. So it's exciting for me to be like, hey, I got the human element of my voice and like understanding a little bit of theory and playing instruments. Let's just go crazy and learn and add as much texture and sound design and stuff as we can and see where it ends up. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really been my process, I think.
I love that. And so I'll ask you this, and this isn't like a gotcha, because I think it is interesting. So you mentioned the human element is a huge part of your music, and then there's all these new tools, right? And I think the probably where my mind goes right now is like I'm seeing all these AI tools that are being brought to market. What, and you know, as far as tools that you can literally prompt and be like, come up with a melody for me, and then you just drag that into Ableton, you know. And I guess I'm not asking for your general consensus on people what use that, but do you see those kind of tools as helpful to you in any way? Like even if you were stuck and maybe something that you're noodling around on the piano, it's not coming to you. Do you see how that could work into a Shallou record at all? Or do you find that the human element would be sort of compromised there?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the struggle of being stuck. I think it makes you switch gears if you don't have access to certain things, right? It's like the limitation sometimes can create magic where you're like, I don't know how to play guitar, so let me switch to a different instrument. I feel like that's maybe a better path than say, well, I'm just going to generate the guitar because I really want the guitar. It's like, well, yeah, I think I'm more interested in figuring out what I can do on my own. There's certain things that have employed AI tools that are extremely helpful. For example, there's like this vocal plugin that analyzes your vocal and can take all the S's out or all the breaths out or all the, like, you probably use something like that for podcasting where it's like, it's doing busy work for you. And that I'm like down with. I think when it just gets to like pure generation of, you know, it takes away, I think, all the time and like, you know, mastery that you get, or just happy accidents like I'm talking about by just trying to figure it out on your own. That's a lot of the satisfying part, is like the process of getting to where you want to be. And I think also sometimes like with AI, if it's generating something for you, it's kind of like you're stuck with that first idea, right? Like you're saying, hey, AI, make me a guitar part that sounds like Daft Punk. It's like it can do that, and then you follow that path, and you're like kind of like locked into that path almost, maybe I would say. Whereas if you pick up a guitar and try to sound like Daft Punk, you'll end up sounding like you, and then you could maybe go on a different path that's more like you. I don't know, but maybe this is kind of a convoluted answer, but yeah, I'm
No,
against it right now because I love my process. Like I love doing things the way I'm doing them, and I don't feel like I'm like falling behind or being replaced. So, you know, and there's like a couple other aspects. There's an environmental aspect of data centers and like kind of, you know, all these things taking over, and like, are we, you know, concentrating too much power in the hands of these people and stuff like that. But that's a whole other conversation. Just how it affects me is that, you know, I'm not really down to use it. I'm not a fan. And I think
the main thing that I'm resonating with there is, and now I'm sort of thinking about it even in that context, is like the struggle along the way, right? You mentioned that right away. I remember when I would start, you know, because I'm not a great guitarist. And so when I would be working on records, trying to kind of get that like Stardust Mojo kind of thing, you know, essentially I'm trying to emulate Nile Rodgers, and that's just never going to happen. So like, I thought I had to find my own way of trying to get a guitar to sound passable. And it was kind of like the Charlie Puth method, where it would be like, I'm recording like one note at a time and then, or one chord at a time, and then essentially trying to mess with that audio to get it to sound close.
Yeah.
And I think that you're 100% right. That struggle is where ingenuity kind of comes from, and uniqueness, right? Like you are not going to find, you might discover like a whole new way of recording something by just trying instead of, I guess, just being handed something, right? Like even, I mean, you could almost, I don't want to, this is kind of a leap, but you could almost say to an extent, it's like if you hired like a session guy to do that for you, you know, does it accomplish what you set out to do? Yes. But what did you miss out on maybe learning along the way
Yeah.
in pursuit of your creative, your creative like endpoint, right? There's a lot to be said there.
Right. And I don't think everybody needs to know how to do everything. I think it's totally fine. Like, I mean, Brian Wilson, who, when he was creating Pet Sounds, it was all about the band, the people that he hired, and they were like creating magic in that room. And he was kind of like bouncing ideas off of them in the moment. And I think, yeah, like you don't have to sit down and play guitar yourself if you're not a good guitar player. You could hire a guitarist to play with that might bring something out of you and that might bring something out of that moment that like AI couldn't necessarily.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot, and maybe this is overgeneralizing, but I think that creatives and musicians kind of fall in a couple, like two buckets almost, like, and it's almost a spectrum where it's, you're either sort of someone who I always called noodling, you know, you're someone who just comes to an idea by just experimenting. You don't really know where the end point is, but by essentially trial and error, you eventually arrive there. Or you're someone who can just like hear it so well that you can almost orchestrate it because you know where it needs to be. And so that to your point, it's almost that Brian Wilson kind of mentality on one spectrum, and you know, Joe on the other, where it's like I'm gonna just kind of let what comes out of me come out of me. And then you kind of fall in between there depending on the day, right? Like maybe you're always on one side of that spectrum, which I think is really interesting. And I definitely was more of the noodler when I was writing music. It was like, I'll try and get to an endpoint that I'm kind of hearing, and then it's just like, all right, the limits of like my ability at certain instruments or certain things could only carry me in this direction. And then it's like, all right, well, you can either fight it or you can kind of let that kind of follow. You can either follow where that muse is taking you.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back briefly to the punk thing we were talking about, where like the whole idea of like hardcore punk, which is kind of what I grew up listening to, and my first kind of like musical path I was going down, because I grew up in DC, and like DC hardcore was kind of like a big movement, like happened in the 80s, but the ethos was still there. And the whole thing was that like you can make like a really powerful song or sound while not really knowing how to play your instrument, and like just screaming into a microphone, or like just raw energy. And I think I've taken that ethos with me throughout all of life. It's just like you try things, you do what you can. Like you don't have to be a virtuoso to make great music and connect with people. I think that's what it's really all about, is the connection, right? So however you can get there, I guess is the way. That's the satisfying part of music, though, is connecting with people. And I think that's why live music is so important and will never really like go away, is because even if there's someone up there just with CDJs jumping up and down, people will be like, oh, I feel so alive in this moment, right? Whereas like, I don't know, there might not be as much of a connection in the future. If so much music is AI generated, people won't know what is human and what's not, but they'll always know there's like someone on stage doing something, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's like there's always a part of the human condition that people are tapping into when someone is on stage. And I think DJing is probably the clearest example, because it's, you're playing pre-recorded music, but the connection that you're striking with your audience, whether that's through song selection, track selection, the sort of like arc you're taking them on as in a DJ set, or your stage presence, right? Like that all is connecting with them. That is on a greater level than just the music that's being played out of the speakers, right? So
and I think to learn kind of like, sorry to interrupt, but like the whole DJ culture is so much richer and deeper than like what I thought it was at first. When I first got into it, I was like, well, I don't want to be a DJ. I want to perform live and like do all this. And then as time has gone on, I've learned more about like no, like you could play unreleased, you can have like a whole album that's unreleased, and then people will like trade their unreleased stuff together, remixes that just you could never release that you could play out and like connect with people over, and kind of this whole like subculture that yes, you're playing pre-recorded music, but you're playing music that like doesn't really exist in the world. It might not ever exist in any other way. And that's like, wait, that's so sick. That's punk rock, I guess. Like, and the more I've learned about that, the more interested I've been in DJing and wanting to like get out there and do shows like that. Where I'm like, oh man, I could play like a remix of Lord and never have Lord sign off on it, and it's like it's fine. I'm like, this is sick. Like, this is kind of how I want to do things.
Well, you made my segue really easy, because I was like, we were talking a lot about the studio artist, but I'm curious about the DJ set and how you think about that, or if you think about it at all differently. You've kind of alluded to a couple points of like, you know, sometimes, and I wonder how you feel about it now versus back then, with everything getting so fast these days. You know, how are you adapting your music to your sets now? How do you think about your sets?
Yeah, I think right now I'm enjoying longer sets. I think the hour and a half thing I kind of struggle with, or like that's kind of been a typical billing for me, is because like I want to play stuff that's in 130 BPM that I've written or whatever, and kind of fits in these kind of like crowd pleasing other genres that I also want to play and explore. So I kind of have to like craft a journey of like one for them, one for me, surprising them, surprising myself, and then eventually kind of getting to a peak or an arc where they're with me and kind of anything I do is cool. Like, you know, and I think also DJing has really gotten me more comfortable with the way crowds respond to things. I think when I was playing live and I had sort of like pre-planned set, the only tool I had to get the crowd more hyped up was to go, whoa, come on, like let's go, like that kind of thing, or like, you know, say, you know, talk to them, tell them a joke or something like that. And I think with DJing, you can control so much more of the energy of the room. And there's some times where like the energy will fall flat, but it's okay because you can like change it. Like you could do whatever you want. And it's actually kind of exciting sometimes when you play something and it doesn't go well, or you make a mistake, or even like the CDJ like glitches out. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, I got to like reset the energy now and like go in a completely different direction. And it's almost like, you know, the classic thing of the whole thing of like musicians want to be comedians and comedians want to be musicians. Like I feel like it's almost closer to like my sets are closer to like what a stand-up comedian would do now, where they're like playing a bunch of music that they've worked on or they like, seeing what goes well, and then like copying that to the next set and kind of building this like almost like go-to set that you're doing. You know, just like a comedian would tell the same joke, and if it doesn't work, they get rid of it. Like, and it is a really interesting way of like reinforming what I'm doing in the studio, where instead of the only reaction to my demo being me and my manager and a couple other people, it's like a whole crowd of people who are either my fans or don't know who I am. And so I can get an instant reaction and I can say, this idea is cool. I'm going to shelf it because it didn't get as much of a reaction as I would have wanted. And that's what I needed to figure out if this idea was worth going down the path of like, you know, spending 30 hours on it. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't need to be spending 30 hours on this in 2026 when you need to like, feels like you need to get a song out every month. Yeah. So all that, I mean, DJing has just been like a really nice, like refreshing creative process for me. And I think the people who dislike it haven't really like dived into the craft of like what it's like to make a set like that. And they think like, oh yeah, you just play a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of like Rihanna remixes, because that'll get the crowd singing along. And it's like, well, no, you could go pretty deep with it. And I think also like the electronic audiences now are so educated. It's like you could play a song that was teased on TikTok for like months. And then it comes out, it's finally out. Like you can add it to your USB just from iTunes. And by the time you play it, people are like, I know this shit. Like people have been playing this for like years. Like fuck off. Like I don't want to hear this anymore. And it's just kind of an interesting thing where these people are super educated. They like a lot of different kinds of electronic. Like I feel like the electronic fan has a pretty wide range of what they listen to now. I don't think like people are only listening to Dom Dolla or something. I think they're listening to like Dom Dolla and then some weird crazy like acid house from Germany or something. And like they appreciate both of these things. Or they're listening to the chill artists, like they're listening to like Lane 8, people like that. And you know, you could play a remix of Coldplay in a set and they'd be like, oh, this is cool, whatever. So it's just really fun, kind of like a diverse world musically, where like I was telling my manager this the other day with Carson. I was like, it'd be really cool if like indie artists, like band, because he manages some like indie bands, and would like play each other's unreleased songs on stage as a way of almost like promoting them, or like kind of making more of a culture around songs in that way. And he's like, yeah, I don't know how that would work. I'm like, I think it'd be sick. Like, imagine if like when Bob, and I feel like maybe this used to happen where like Bob Dylan would go play a song. He'd go play like a Neil Young song and be like, my buddy Neil wrote this. Like, this is a cool one. Like, you know, and it would create this culture around like all of music being this, I don't know, this kind of behind
shared
like
experience almost.
Yeah, shared experience, and like behind the vault of like going to buy a ticket to see a show. Like you're getting more than just seeing that artist perform their songs. You're getting kind of like their curation and what they're into. And I've always been into that. But
yeah, it's a really interesting world. Like, because I've been DJing since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I
don't know how old you are, so I said, wow.
I'll be 36 this December. So, I mean, it's been 20 years of, and there was like a little gap in there when I first moved to LA and was kind of focusing on other things, but I've always loved that culture. Like I was the annoying kid when I was in college, because I grew up in the Midwest, went to school in the Midwest, and was really the only person really into electronic music in college when I was in college from like 2009 to 2013. So it wasn't really reaching, it was reaching Chicago, but Madison, Wisconsin, where I went to school, it was not really reaching there. And so, you know, I think what you were talking about, educated dancers now, and it's so true. Like you could play sort of a more in the cut dance record now, and people are going to know it. And, you know, anywhere from like a large to an intimate dance floor, you can probably get going with that. Whereas back then, if I wasn't playing the David Guetta or Calvin Harris, kind of like the highest, like lowest fruit, I guess, like the absolute commercials thing, people wouldn't really recognize it.
Yeah.
They would know kind of what we were doing because it was dance music, right? But they just didn't know those records. And now I think there's certain like in the cut records that, I mean, Stardust, right? I mean, I guess that was a big record. Music Sounds Better With You was a big record back in the 2000s, but everybody knows that song, you know, and it's kind of a deep cut. It's kind of like the first level of like, are you a house head or not? You know, like, do you know that record? Well, let me try. Do you know Cashmere? Do you know Percolator? Like, what else do we, you know, it's kind of these levels of it.
It can be,
and I think
really
that, the other thing you mentioned that I thought it's so interesting because it does. And I wonder how you approach this with your release strategy, because it does seem with the advent of TikTok, the whole sort of DJ sphere, we'll call it, it seems like there's so much more emphasis on the ramp up pre-release than maybe 10 years ago, where it was like, okay, we'll get like a pre-save going and we definitely want to put more of the budget after release because we want it to live on. Whereas now there's so much, I don't know, focus maybe on getting the song go viral before it's released, because there's this ID culture in DJing that has like, if you can get like people dying to have the record released pre-release, it only helps. But then kind of what you were saying was so interesting. It's like the second it comes out, it's kind of a washed record. Everyone's like heard it already, and they're like, oh no, I'm already done with it. Like and it's like you haven't even really enjoyed it. You've enjoyed this like short little bit on social media, but you've like maybe you haven't even streamed it yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of this state. It's like it happens in podcasting too, where I don't listen to many podcasts, right? There's maybe a few, but I do see clips of podcasts all the time on social media, and so I'm familiar with a bunch of podcasts, but I wouldn't say I'm a listener or a fan. And it's like this interesting thing that short form, like social media, has created in all these different aspects of entertainment, where it sort of just lives in short form forever. And then when it actually comes out, nobody pays attention. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, I don't really know what the answer is. I think everything's always a reaction to everything else. Like, I think eventually, I think it's already happening where people are getting a little bit tired of this, 10-second snippet, and then, the song comes out and they're like, okay, I'm already over this. Like, I think there's going to be some response marketing wise to that is going in the other way. I don't really know what that is, because I feel like the answer isn't to just drop songs with no pre-hype. But I guess when I was starting out, it was like there was a lot of emphasis on almost making like a trailer for social media. Like, I remember watching like Madion's trailer for I can't remember the name of the album, that like his big album that was like took
Icarus.
Maybe that one, but then the one after that, I think he did it both times. But it was this thing where like you would, I guess, sign to like a pretty good label. They'd give you a marketing budget, and then they would like, you'd say, okay, well, I'm going to go shoot music videos, or I'm going to shoot promos. And then the promos were like building up hype for people, where you're like, oh shit, like this is going to be so epic. Like, this song's going to come out, it's going to be so sick. Whereas now it's kind of like, yeah, I really want that thing that I've heard, and I just want to connect the dots. Like, I want that on my Spotify. I want that. I want to own that. I want to have that. And it's funny because I feel like DJs care a lot more about the pre-release, because like that's the pre-release, almost like playing in their sets is for their fans, it's for their crowds, and then releasing the song is almost for like the industry or the people who don't really care. They're like you say, like they consume the clips, but they don't go to the show. They're not like fan of the DJ. And so it's kind of interesting because it's almost like this little like, screw you. The industry's like, okay, here's the song. Like, now you go make your money from the song. I already, got what I needed out of it. Even though it's still generating money for the artist, it's just like the priorities have shifted, where like it's so fun to go to a set and hear stuff you've never heard before. And that's like the experience people want, rather than the experience of like New Music Friday, like what just came out that I'm going to listen to. Like, so I don't know where it's going to go. I think for me, I've tried to build up a little bit of hype, but it's harder. I haven't had as many like DJ sets where I can try out songs, or as many like shows per se, because I've just been super like writing mode. But that's like a lot of what I'm going to be doing this summer, is testing out stuff, kind of like teasing it out at shows. And I think like a lot of people struggle to figure out like what kind of content they want to make, and DJing kind of solves that problem for you. It's like, well, you just need to hire someone to come take clips of you playing your music for people. And like, what else would people want from you than that? Again, it goes back to like stand up. Like, you see a comedian telling a joke, it's like a clip on Instagram Reels, and you're like, okay, cool, I like that joke. I'm going to go to that show. I'm going to buy that ticket. And that's all that really needs to happen. There doesn't need to be like this whole situation going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
no, I agree. It's a very interesting landscape. And I think the cool thing, I mean, the one thing I think people just don't want to see so much effort go into any kind of content. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think to a good, and I say that in a good way. Like, I think people just want more real moments than,
Mhm.
not to put animators out of work, but in editors, but like they don't want to see this like it's not like it's not a movie. Like this is not. We don't need a trailer. We want to see how people are generally reacting to the
Mhm.
music. I mean, like that Dean Turnley record,
Mhm.
I think it was built on that performance of them playing in Australia to this giant field and people just losing their minds to the record. And then
Yeah. It never
that,
felt like he was trying to make something happen.
no,
Like, I think
yeah,
that's why another thing I like about the DJ culture is that it's like, it really is not trying to, I think there's like a big emphasis in America on like trying to be a rich and famous artist versus just like doing your craft and people really connecting with it and hyping it up. And I think that was an example of he's just playing a song that he like, I don't know how it probably took him like 5 minutes to make, and he's just like trying it out and just having fun. And it just works so well for that moment. And like maybe it doesn't work for like a streaming moment as well. Like maybe it's like not a song in that way. It's like an idea and a moment. Like maybe the song
yeah,
itself is more of a moment than like a song that needs to be like going through a whole schedule of promo and radio play and all this shit. Maybe it's just like a little moment. And so I think that's really cool. Like if you can create a moment around your music that way. But I think also once you get that investment from fans and the audience, it's like, what are you going to give them that's more than that? Like, do you want to present a story? Do you want to present a narrative? Do you want to go a little bit deeper? And that's what I get excited about too, is like you can use DJing and kind of the release schedules that you're talking about to pull people in. And then once they're in, it's like, okay, here's all this other stuff I want to show you that's like not just like a 2-minute idea for my USB. It's like something I've worked really hard on and I like want to express myself. So overall, I think there's a lot of pessimism around music right now, but I'm really optimistic about it for a couple of reasons. One being that I can make literally whatever sound I want without AI. Some people would say I can make whatever sound I want with AI.
yeah,
Great.
same.
Like, but like part of the thing I enjoy is making them whatever. Um, like people care about music so much. Like I feel like there's such intense fervor for music still. And I think there's just like a really good culture around electronic right now.
Hmm.
So I feel good about it. I think people are nervous about AI and nervous about these, marketing strategies and stuff like that. But everything's going to change. Like I've been doing this for 10 plus years, like you said. Shit has changed so much over that time. And it's just going to keep changing. And like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to get better or worse, but it's definitely going to be different. So it can
Yeah.
be exciting if you look at it optimistically.
Yeah. No, I think you got to. I think I always say this to my wife, like after I've had like a couple glasses of wine and I'm just like relaxing, listening to something I just like heard, or maybe I found some band on TikTok and now I'm listening to their like catalog and I'm like, we'll sit down. And it's the simplest thing. I'll just say, I fucking love music so much. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
just nothing that gets me so excited and just like pulls me in. It just
Mm-hmm.
like really grabs my attention in every
I
aspect from
know.
every corner. Um, and I think that it's always going to survive. Like there's always the big bad wolf that I think the industry tries to, you know, like really platform. It was streaming at one point. It was CDs before that. It was all these different things, but the music's always going to survive because I think there's always going to be, like we sort of said at the beginning of this, there's the human connection is always going to survive all of this. Doesn't matter the tech. Things might change in the industry, but the music's going to survive because people want to connect through
Mm-hmm.
that medium. Always. Always.
Yeah,
So, Joe, we've been chatting. I've really enjoyed this, and
me too,
we have
man.
like a couple things we like to end these episodes with. And this is just a little game we call This or That. and we try to switch it up from time to time, but I think for you, just sort of what I was reading about and sort of the conversation we've been having, I think this influence gauntlet is an appropriate way of titling this. So the way it'll work is I'm going to give you two artists. You're probably familiar with them. And you're just going to pick one that goes on to the next round. And then essentially the last surviving artist of this wins. And I'm just kind of curious who's going to, I think the last one you will laugh at.
Okay.
So we're going to start with two that I think might be tough for you because I think I've seen you name them together in different interviews. But are you ready to play the influence gauntlet? This is Shallou's influence gauntlet.
Yeah.
So we have Bonobo versus John Hopkins. If you have to pick one,
that's
who do you pick?
That's a crazy one. Oh,
I should have said Coldplay versus Radiohead.
Yeah, that would have been funny. That's so tough. I think I might go Bonobo though.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
John Hopkins is involved in so much good, and he's made so much good music. But I think Bonobo I look up to as someone that I've sort of modeled my career after in some ways. That's who I want to be. I don't think I could be John Hopkins. It's like they're both geniuses, but I feel like I'm striving to be a Bonobo.
I love it.
Okay.
Second round, we have Bonobo or Fortet.
Oh my God. I'm gonna go Fortet.
Ooh, I'm gonna go Fortet. I like that.
But what if I meet these guys someday? What if I make a song with these guys? They're gonna know about this.
Okay, well we'll bury this actually. No one will ever see this. Note to Dylan, my editor, cut this part.
Yeah, cut the whole
all right, so now we have, this one's also going to be tough. I'm sorry I'm doing this to you, man.
I feel like Bonobo would understand. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's all fun and games.
Yeah.
Disclaimer, all fun and games.
Yeah.
Fortet or Flying Lotus?
I'm going to stick with Fortet, but I do love Flying Lotus. And as a LA guy now, I see the, huge influence, but
yeah,
I'm going to stick with Fortet. Yeah.
Fortet or Mount Kimby?
Oh my God, I love Mount Kimby. I miss them, dude. I'm going to stick with Fortet though, because I think Fortet's just so consistently good. I love the new Mount Kimby stuff, but
yeah.
Okay.
Surviving, Fortet or James Blake?
Oh, I'm going to switch over to James Blake on that one. Just the voice. That's all you got to say, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've also loved what he's been pushing as far as hey, I want my rights back for my masters, and I'm doing things differently.
Yeah.
I feel like he was very vocal maybe 2 years ago when that was all kind of going down.
Yeah, I would say he's a very important artist. I feel like he's really he's an important voice right now. Whereas I think Fortet is such an important producer and creative, but he's not really out there like that, So I think I'm going to go James Blake.
Okay. James Blake or Caribou?
I have a story about Caribou that might inform Caribou. I went to Caribou's show, and at the time Carson was a talent buyer and bought him for that show. Not bought him, but whatever you would say. Talent buyers too. Bought the talent, his talent. Yeah, bought his talent. Anyway, booked him. I met him and he was really, really sweet. And I sent him an email with a bunch of my demos, and he actually responded very thoughtfully and kindly, and was like, "You're so good. You got to keep doing this." Blah blah. And I don't know how much of it was BS, but it was really what I needed to hear at the time. So, aside from just being a great producer, love his live shows with the band, I really like his voice too. I'm going to go Caribou with this because Caribou is a huge influence for me. And it's always sort of more of a North Star of what I feel like I could accomplish or push myself to be more like. So maybe, yeah, I'm going to go Caribou.
Yeah. No, I like that. I feel like that is who he is. I feel like Dan is that guy. Cause like even if you look at his Spotify, like, he took the time, maybe he not took the time, but he just was like, I'm going to be intentional with what sort of info I put in this little bio section. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm Dan. I think his email's in there too. It's kind of wild. It's like,
Yeah.
send me a message.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't think I actually got his email from Carson either. Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. I think I just saw it.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think that's so cool that he's like such a genius, but like takes the time to reply to people like me at the time. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's awesome. All right. This is the last round.
Okay.
I might have to add one more depending on who you pick here.
Okay.
And we can finally settle it all. But Caribou or Coldplay?
That's good. That's great. What does it say about me? No, I am gonna stick with Caribou. I'm gonna stick with Caribou because I don't know. I don't really have to justify it, but Coldplay's had some misses, some big swings and big misses. That's why I love them. They're always taking big swings. Chris Martin is like a dreamer, a true creative, maybe to a fault at sometimes, definitely to a fault at sometimes. But Caribou's never put out anything bad, like literally never.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna stick with him.
Cool. I like it. That's the influence guy. I was going to add another round there if you picked Coldplay, and I think you know who I was going to put it up against.
That would have been good. That would have been good.
That one's for you, Carson.
Yeah.
But it will never be. Well, we've reached the end. We have one last piece here, Joe, and this is a question from our previous guests,
Okay.
Veggie and Sunflower, and it's two-parter. I gave them two questions because it was two of them on the show.
Okay.
So this is from Lucas. This is from Sunflower, and he wants to know what are the go-to on show day. What are your go-to performance clothing? Like, what are your preferences? Are you going comfort or are you going stylish?
Oh damn. I'm somewhere in the middle. I sweat so much on stage, whether I'm jumping or not. Maybe it's nerves or dancing. So like, it's got to be in the black, dark blue kind of area. I've made the mistake of wearing like something lighter and just pitting it the fuck out. And then like looking back at clips and it's like a disgusting like stain. I'm like, I can't do anything with this footage. So I'm always gonna go darker, and then I'll hit like a couple stores here and there in LA like beforehand to try to get something that's cool and breathable. But yeah, it's definitely I'm catering towards the stylish. I care. I try really hard. So I'm like, I can't just go in there in like sweatpants or something.
Yeah.
But maybe someday I'll do that. I don't know.
Maybe when you're phoning it in at the end of
Yeah.
your career or
No,
something.
never, dude.
I don't care anymore.
That's funny.
Well, this one's from Veggie,
Okay.
and it's similar. It's more of a preference kind of thing. How many drinks before a gig are you doing?
Ooh.
Is it just a couple? Is it none? Is it sober? Or does it depend?
It depends. So if I'm doing a live gig where I'm singing and stuff, it's like, nah. Because I gotta make this can't be dry, this can't be weird. DJing though, I'll have like one before, one or two during, but never more than that. It does relax me and it gives me a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like it gets me into it more maybe, where I'm not just standing up there like making super analytical decisions. Like I feel like my brain is usually pretty anxious. So I do kind of need that little mellow. I'm not a heavy drinker. But maybe I'm like, sometimes I think, hey, if I had a drink before, it might not affect my live show as much as I think it would. But yeah, it's never like a full drink. It's never like multiple drinks. It's never party mode, because I will fuck up and you will not get your money's worth. It'll be bad. So that's my answer.
I think that's a good way. I mean, the live thing, it feels like there's more pressure, right? Like,
Yeah.
and why why learn then how alcohol affects that
Yeah.
element, right? Like, nah, you could maybe in rehearsal. You can
Yeah,
you can do
yeah,
that. Save
that's
that for
awesome.
rehearsal.
That's so funny. I'm gonna do this rehearsal drunk just to see what it would feel like. That's
There you
great.
go.
Litmus test.
Um, that's great. I love that. Okay, well now I'm gonna ask you for a question to leave our next guest, and I'll preface this because it's not always a DJ that we ask on here. So
Mm,
it could be it could be a broad question about life or anything.
mm,
Because I've noticed from some of our previous guests, they're always assuming that a DJ is coming on. So these were very DJ forward questions.
mhm.
But I'll ask you, Joe, what question would you like to leave our next guest?
Are they like all performers, or are it's the
It's
gauntlet?
people from the industry, really.
Oh,
Like the whole point of this show, I think, is to showcase, and we've done a lot of artists just naturally of how it's kind of been set up. But I think the idea is that we want to showcase everybody that helps put on a show and helps really like make this industry tick.
yeah,
So it could be anybody from
yeah. Because
music
my question,
supervisors to label managers
right,
to managers to
right.
promoters.
My question was gonna be, what's the most unusual writer item that you have? Because I was thinking about the DJs too, but I guess you could maybe tailor it to be like, what's the most unusual rider item you've encountered, maybe, or I could say, if you could build your rider, what's like the number one thing you'd want on it?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that because that one will fit across
Yeah,
the gauntlets.
yeah. If
So
you
what's
you
the
aren't a
number one?
DJ and you were gonna DJ, what do you have to have on there?
What do you have to have on your rider if you were a DJ or are a DJ?
Yeah,
I love that, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time talking with us here on the air.
you're really good at
This
this.
was
I
really
think it's great.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we do our best here. But till next time, we'll see you. Thanks for
Cheers,
coming on.
dude.